The quiet corridors of Britain's historic palaces have long been the backdrop for intense family dynamics, hidden negotiations, and the heavy burden of public duty. For years, a palpable and frosty silence has defined the relationship between the British monarch and his younger son, creating an international narrative of estrangement that many believed would never find a resolution. The public has watched from a distance as a wall of absolute silence grew higher and more impenetrable between London and California, leaving royal observers to wonder if the fractured bonds of the House of Windsor could ever be repaired. Yet, beneath the surface of official statements and carefully curated public appearances, a subtle transformation appears to be taking place within the royal landscape. This quiet evolution comes at a time of profound reflection for the institution, as it navigates both internal transitions and the inescapable pressure of relentless global scrutiny. The world has grown accustomed to the predictable rhythm of distance and unresolved tension that has characterized this high-profile separation, making any sign of a thaw an event of immense significance. Observers who have closely monitored the family's public trajectory know that every minor gesture, every unspoken word, and every behind-the-scenes decision carries a weight that reverberates far beyond the palace gates. In recent days, whispers from deep within the royal circle suggest that a carefully considered gesture has been made from the very top of the institutional hierarchy, aimed directly at breaking the multi-year deadlock. This move, unexpected by many who have followed the bitter public disputes, represents a tactical and perhaps emotional pivot in a family drama that has gripped the global audience for over half a decade. The sheer complexity of the situation involves not just personal pride and deep emotional wounds, but also the rigid protocols of state-sanctioned security and the unyielding glare of the media. As summer approaches, the anticipation surrounding a potential cross-Atlantic journey has reached a critical juncture, setting the stage for a sequence of events that could redefine the internal dynamics of the monarchy. The narrative that has played out in the headlines for years is suddenly shifting toward an uncertain new chapter, where old grievances are being weighed against the inevitable passage of time and the desire for institutional stability. To fully understand how this delicate moment arrived, one must look closely at the subtle signals that have emerged from the palace, suggesting that the long-standing freeze is undergoing a complex and highly strategic reorganization behind closed doors. The central revelation shaking the foundations of the British media landscape involves an unprecedented gesture from King Charles III, who has reportedly extended a significant olive branch to his estranged son, Prince Harry, and his daughter-in-law, Meghan Markle. According to highly placed sources, the 77-year-old monarch has taken the extraordinary step of inviting the Duke and Duchess of Sussex to reside at a secure royal property during their highly anticipated return to the United Kingdom next month. This development represents a monumental departure from the rigid stance maintained by the institution since the couple dramatically stepped back from their roles as senior working royals more than half a decade ago. The significance of this invitation cannot be overstated, as it directly addresses the single most contentious issue that has kept Prince Harry physically and emotionally distanced from his homeland: the ongoing and bitter dispute over personal safety and state-sponsored protection. The reports indicate that the king has not merely offered a roof over their heads, but has explicitly included robust, official security arrangements designed to alleviate the deep-seated fears that the Duke of Sussex has repeatedly voiced in public and legal forums. This specific provision marks a critical turning point, given that the Sussexes were completely stripped of their taxpayer-funded security privileges immediately following their relocation to California in 2020. A decision that sparked a relentless legal battle between Prince Harry and the British Home Office. by directly intervening and offering a compromised safety framework within the royal estate. The monarch is attempting to dismantle the primary logistical barrier preventing Hare's family from setting foot on British soil as a complete unit. The upcoming journey, scheduled for the second week of July, is poised to be an incredibly high-stakes event, as it will mark the first time the entire Sussex family travels across the Atlantic together in years. Prince Harry, who is now 41, and Meghan Markle, 44, are planning to bring their two young children, 7-year-old Prince Archie and 5-year-old Princess Lilibet, making this an emotionally charged family reunion against a backdrop of intense international media scrutiny. The inclusion of the children is a vital element of this unfolding narrative, as young Archie and Lilibet have been almost entirely isolated from their extended British heritage, with their last brief appearance in the United Kingdom occurring during the late Queen Elizabeth II's Platinum Jubilee celebrations back in June 2022. For King Charles, who has spent the recent years balancing the heavy crown of state with personal health challenges and institutional restructuring, the opportunity to connect with his youngest grandchildren is said to be a powerful, motivating factor behind this sudden diplomatic overture. However, the path to this delicate arrangement has been paved with years of extraordinary tension, mutual recriminations, and public disclosures that have deeply wounded the royal family. The institutional trauma of what became universally known as Megxit left a profoundly bitter taste within the palace walls, disrupting centuries of established tradition and creating a public relations crisis that required years of careful management. The subsequent waves of media disclosures further widened the chasm, beginning with the explosive and deeply polarizing television interview with Oprah Winfrey in 2021, which aired accusations that shook the core of the monarchy's public image. This was followed by a highly publicized docuseries and, most damagingly, the publication of Prince Harry's raw and uncompromising memoir, Spare, in early 2023, which laid bare the deep internal rivalries, physical altercations, and systemic coldness that he claimed defined his upbringing within the firm. Each of these events added heavy layers of armor to both sides, making the prospect of any future reconciliation seem virtually impossible to even the most optimistic royal commentators. Yet, the ice began to show its first microscopic cracks last September, during a low-profile visit by Prince Harry to London, where he sat down with his father for what was described as a private tea. It was during this brief and highly confidential encounter that the groundwork for the current breakthrough was quietly laid, with the Duke of Sussex reportedly expressing a profound desire to spend more meaningful time in his native England and to finally bring his wife and children back across the pond. The upcoming July visit is specifically tied to a series of high-profile events leading up to the organization of the annual Invictus Games, an international sporting event founded by Prince Harry that remains his proudest and most enduring legacy. The fact that this trip is happening under these newly negotiated conditions suggests that both the palace and the California-based couple have recognized the necessity of a pragmatic compromise. Palace insiders claim that the father and son have been speaking regularly over the telephone in recent months, a steady line of communication that has allowed them to bypass traditional bureaucratic obstacles and address the security deadlock directly. Despite this apparent progress between father and son, an immense cloud of tension and uncertainty still hangs over the role that Meghan Markle will play during this historic return. The Duchess of Sussex has not stepped foot in the United Kingdom since September 2022, when she attended the state funeral of Queen Elizabeth II under conditions of extreme public and familial strain, and her relationship with her father-in-law remains an unresolved enigma. It remains entirely unclear whether the former American actress and the British monarch will engage in any direct, face-to-face interaction during the busy July schedule, or if the visit will be strictly segmented to avoid any potential flare-ups of past animosities. The sheer logistical complexity of managing a royal visit of this magnitude, combined with the volatile emotional history of the participants, has created a pressure cooker atmosphere within the palace communications teams, who are desperate to maintain absolute control over the narrative. When pressed for official confirmation or clarity on the exact nature of the security guarantees and residential arrangements, representatives for both King Charles and the Duke and Duchess of Sussex maintained a wall of absolute silence, declining to issue any immediate statements to the global press. This lack of official denial has only served to fuel the growing intensity of the situation, signaling to the world that these delicate negotiations are happening at the highest levels of confidentiality and urgency. As the clock ticks down toward the second week of July, the tension continues to build across the United Kingdom and the international community, with everyone waiting to see if this carefully constructed olive branch will hold under the immense weight of history, or if the deep-seated fractures of the past will once again shatter the fragile peace before the plane even lands in London. The profound implications of this royal development extend far beyond the immediate logistics of travel arrangements and security protocols, touching the very core of the modern identity and survival of the British monarchy. To understand why this moment carries such immense historical weight, one must examine the intricate biographies of the individuals involved and the shifting institutional pressures that have brought them back to the negotiating table. At 77 years old, King Charles III is keenly aware of his legacy and the limited time he has to solidify the foundations of a streamlined, contemporary monarchy that can withstand the challenges of the 21st century. Ascending the throne in late 2022, after the historic 70-year reign of his mother, Queen Elizabeth II, Charles inherited an institution facing unprecedented cultural changes and public skepticism. Throughout his long tenure as the Prince of Wales, he championed causes such as environmental sustainability and community architectural design, but his most profound challenge has proven to be internal family governance. Facing his own well-documented health battles and the immense administrative burden of the crown, the king has increasingly viewed the protracted public warfare with his younger son not just as a painful personal tragedy, but as a severe institutional liability that continually distracts from the core work of the royal house. Insiders suggest that the monarch's desire for reconciliation is deeply rooted in a traditional view of family unity and a sovereign's duty to project stability to a global audience that looks to the House of Windsor as a symbol of continuity. On the other side of this deep divide stands Prince Harry and now 41, whose life trajectory has been defined by a complex struggle between the rigid expectations of his royal birthright and an intense desire for personal autonomy. Born as the secondary heir, or the spare, Harry's early life was marked by the tragic loss of his mother, Diana, Princess of Wales, an event that profoundly shaped his distrust of public media and his perception of the palace's internal machinery. His subsequent 10-year career in the British Armed Forces, which included 2 operational tours of duty in Afghanistan, provided him with a sense of purpose, camaraderie, and independence that he felt was missing from traditional royal life. It was this deep connection to the military community that inspired him to found the Invictus Games in 2014, an international adaptive sporting event for wounded, injured, and sick servicemen and women. The Invictus Games quickly grew into a massive global phenomenon, universally praised for its impact on veteran rehabilitation and public awareness. For Prince Harry, the Games represent his most significant independent achievement and the primary platform through which he continues to exercise his commitment to public service outside the confines of the traditional royal family structure. The upcoming series of events in the United Kingdom this July are directly linked to the intensive planning and promotional countdown for future iterations of these games, most notably the highly anticipated return of the event to British soil for the 2027 Invictus Games in Birmingham. This upcoming milestone makes his physical presence in the United Kingdom absolutely vital, creating a scenario where personal family dynamics and international organizational responsibilities have become inextricably linked. The narrative is further complicated by the unique and highly scrutinized journey of Meghan Markle, the 44-year-old Duchess of Sussex, whose entry into the royal family in 2018 initially promised a wave of modernization and global inclusivity. As a successful American actress, graduate of Northwestern University, and an outspoken advocate for gender equality and social justice, Meghan brought a completely fresh perspective to the centuries-old institution. However, the rapid transition from the fast-paced entertainment industry of Los Angeles to the hyper-traditional, strictly regulated environment of the British court proved to be fraught with systemic friction and intense media hostility. The subsequent decision to step away from royal duties in 2020 and relocate across the Atlantic to Montecito, California, was born out of a profound sense of isolation and a documented escalation of security threats that the couple felt were not being adequately addressed by the state apparatus. Meghan's prolonged absence from the United Kingdom since the late Queen's funeral in 2022 highlights the deep emotional scars left by this turbulent period, making the current discussions regarding her potential participation in the July trip a matter of intense debate among palace officials and the public alike. Whether she chooses to step back into the British public eye or remain in California while Harry navigates the initial stages of the reunion. Her influence on the long-term direction of the Sussex brand and its relationship with the Crown remains absolute. The true significance of this impending cross-Atlantic journey also centers on the next generation of the royal lineage, specifically 7-year-old Prince Archie and 5-year-old Princess Lilibet. Growing up in the sunlit, private environs of Southern California, these two young royals have lived a life entirely removed from the grand castles, formal ceremonies, and rigid protocols that defined their father's childhood. They are growing up with American accents, attending local schools, and experiencing a level of personal freedom that is entirely foreign to the British royal tradition. Yet, despite their geographical distance, they retain their official royal titles and their positions in the line of succession to the British throne, representing a unique bridge between old-world European heritage and modern global culture. King Charles's reported insistence on providing full security and a royal residence for his grandchildren indicates a powerful desire to ensure that Archie and Lilibet are not permanently estranged from their ancestral home or their extended family members. The opportunity for these young children to walk through the historic halls of a royal estate, interact with their grandfather, and potentially connect with their cousins is viewed by many as the most critical and hopeful element of this entire diplomatic effort. It represents a chance to heal the generational trauma that has plagued the family for decades, ensuring that the fractures of the present do not dictate the relationships of the future. As the second week of July approaches, the world watches with bated breath to see how this incredibly delicate and high-stakes reunion will unfold under the unyielding glare of the international spotlight. The success of this visit depends entirely on the ability of both sides to honor the newly negotiated security agreements, maintain absolute confidentiality, and resist the temptation to revisit the bitter grievances of the past. If this temporary truce holds, it could pave the way for a more permanent, stable relationship between the British monarchy and the California-based Sussexes, allowing both entities to coexist harmoniously while pursuing their respective missions on the global stage. It would signal to the world that even the most profound, public, and painful family divisions can be navigated through pragmatic diplomacy, mutual respect, and a shared commitment to the well-being of the next generation. Conversely, if the deep-seated mistrust or media pressure shatters this fragile agreement, the chasm between the father and son could become permanently unbridgeable, cementing a tragic narrative of alienation that would overshadow the institution for years to come. The stakes could not be higher for the House of Windsor as the quiet preparation inside the palace walls continues and the countdown to an unforgettable summer encounter enters its final, definitive phase.